Hello and welcome along to Tippcast today with myself, Shane Stapleton, and Nina Guardian Sports Editor Shane Brophy as ever. Loads to talk about. There was a Tipperary Club Football Championship at the weekend. There's a load of hurling coming up in round 2 of the groups, in the county groups this weekend. And there's plenty of stuff going on around the country. For example, the Shane Walsh transfer situation from Kilkerran-Clonberne to Kilmacud Crokes. Now, it's based on being, student accommodation status in Dublin. His club aren't happy about it. It would probably open up the floodgates if it was allowed through based on student accommodation. Now, maybe there will be other factors. Maybe a permanent residence will also be involved that we don't know about yet. But, we've seen plenty of transfers in Tipperary. You saw what happened with Cashel last year and Knockavilla.
Yeah.
Not exactly to everyone's taste. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's an awkward one because like circumstances do change, and like we've had big name transfers before, and we'll have it again. I suppose maybe it's just a case that would we be having this conversation if Galway had a bad year in football and Shane Walsh didn't have an All-Ireland final performance for the ages? I'd say probably not. Like, I don't think it'd be as severe. But then on the other hand, you see big bad Wolf Kilmacud Crokes getting another star player, while little Kilkerran struggling away at intermediate and Galway potentially losing their best player. I'd say it's just the timing and everything. I just wonder, I don't think the Dublin Football Championship has started, so if this transfer pushes through, he could play in time. I don't know if he's played any club football with Kilkerran this year, even a league game, which I probably hasn't. So there's a quick transfer here allowing him to play in the club championship in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure because in some places you do have to have the transfer forms in at the very start of the year. But then again, I know a player that only a couple of weeks ago transferred from the Dublin Championship to the Antrim Championship. So
I think
I don't think you'd announce it now if you were going to do it next year. It would make no sense. So
and I say if as long as he hasn't played any league football with Kilkerran maybe earlier, so I would assume he probably hasn't, that a transfer now would make him eligible to. Once there's no objection, I'm sure it does look like there will be an objection. And look, I thought the comments of the club chairman and Kilkerran, while understandable, were unhelpful at the time. Like, I think this was really needed. It was a bit of cool heads. It probably needed no comment. And maybe it was like when you start digging your heels in, you could force Shane Walsh away, and he might never come back, as he says himself, when he wants to play. But then, what a kick in the teeth would be to Kilkerran if they had maybe ambitions of doing something this year, coming from the pack, and suddenly your best player is not there. Like, and what does that say?
Let me ask you this, right? So let's say we go back a few years and Bonner Maher's 25, peak of his powers, and all of a sudden he wants to transfer to the biggest club in the county in terms of population anyway, Thurles. Would there be cool heads in Laura, and would you be saying keep your powder
probably
dry,
not?
or would you be losing it?
Yeah, look, that's definitely a lot of it, like, in terms of if it happened to you. But like what difference is there from what Shane Walsh is doing to what Jack O'Shea did back in the day when he moved to a club up in, was it Leixlip, or maybe it's because Leixlip were a small club, there wasn't much said of it. Like, it's a balancing act, really. Like, so it was like that player has to do what's best for himself at the end of the day in terms of maybe maximizing his playing career for inter-county. Like, I'd hate to think that he's going to Kilmacud just to maybe to have a chance of picking up a club All-Ireland. Sure, maybe I think Kilkerran is, I'm not sure about the geography. Kilkerran is not far away from Corofin, so maybe he's been looking on in this and saying, God, I have no chance of winning with Corofin or Kilkerran in Galway. But then, what's there to say? Maybe Kilkerran in a couple of years' time getting a couple of great young guys and they go on and win an All-Ireland intermediate, and that could be the best thing ever. Like, I just think I'd be interested to see what happens over the next few weeks. Like, if he doesn't play club football for Kilkerran-Clonberne, what happens then? Like, I think it's on a knife edge, like what happens to Shane Walsh. But overall, in terms of the transfer debate, like, look, they're not nice to the club that it happens. So there's no doubt about it. Like, we saw it last year with the Knockavilla and Cashel situation. Like, I suppose when especially when your best players are your best players are moving. Like that's always a sore one.
And like how much, like we've seen it in the past happening, transfers to Thurles. I mean, I'm not picking on Thurles. Borrisley, where I'm from, has had transfers, but you look at the Kennys, for example, and their father is from Borrisley. So that's, I think everyone can see the link there straight away. Like it does create a lot of distaste within a county, and even, but at the same time, you couldn't blame Kilmacud for trying to for taking him on board, because if someone else got him, now they have Paul Mannion and maybe Shane Walsh together if the transfer goes through, versus, you'd hate to come up against, let's say they came up against Ballymun, who, for example, have Dean Rock in their forward line. Now they have Dean Rock and Shane Walsh, so you couldn't blame Kilmacud for making it happen.
No, definitely not. And sure, look, was it 10 or 15 years ago when was it Parnells were hoovering up nearly every half decent player out of Laois, I think, for a couple of years when the Laois were going well, like, so. Look, I don't know how this is going to end, really. Like, it's look, I don't know. It's maybe Shane might relent, but would he might go back having a bit of a sour taste in his mouth, feeling forced to stay. Like, I don't think he's anything against his own club. I suppose it's just that how long is he going to be up in Dublin for? Is it be 2, 3, 4 years? Like, is it what happens next year if he graduates and has to move to another part of the country as a PE teacher? Like, it's a I'm sure maybe something could be arranged where maybe he doesn't have to be at every Kilkerran-Clonberne training session for the next couple of weeks, like where he's down for a game maybe once a week, he's come down for training and maybe play the game at the weekend. But like, you can imagine, I suppose you can imagine after that performance, and Kilkerran thinking, God, imagine we have this guy in our team, and like imagine the crowds would be at our games looking at, he's wearing our club jersey, and suddenly you get a kick in the gut like that, like, well, not even a couple of days after, I'm sure 3 or 4 days after the All-Ireland. I don't know how it worked, whether he contacted the chairman saying, I'm looking to do this. Like, you can imagine. Maybe that's understandable how the chairman felt when he got that phone call.
Yeah, well, like, just the momentum of a club, every young boy and girl in Kilkerran-Clonberne will be thinking, I want to be the next Shane Walsh, or down in the local pitch trying to emulate what he's doing, the silky skills, the steps that he does, all that kind of stuff. Again, imagine it in any sort of small club across the country, the main man taken out of it, just in terms of where the club's going over the next few years, the identity of the club, the thought that, our main man is leaving and all that, for whatever justifiable reasons or otherwise. It just really is a kick in the teeth to the parish. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying by Shane Walsh, but just that is kind of the net impact of something like that.
The transfers I really hate, and I feel sorry for those. And there's the small clubs that a small club that will have a talented underage player, but that underage, and you might be in an amalgamation, and then that talented underage player, I have to. When I go on, I have to stay with the stronger club of the. I think the likes of Salahead and Rose Green and Calais and Tipperary, who've lost maybe their best marquee underage hurler because they had to go play underage with a bigger club but then when the time came maybe to play adult, they stayed with the bigger club instead of coming back feeling that they were going to be losing out, maybe playing Tipperary after a while if they didn't play for the bigger club. They're the ones that stick with me because. Like, I always think once you're in the Tipperary system, they know you're there. Doesn't matter whether you're playing for Thurles Sarsfields or Salahead, they know you're there. Like, and if you're good enough playing senior or junior A, 1 or 2 sessions in with the county, you'll get up to speed very quick. Like, so just because you play a lower grade of club hurling really shouldn't impact your chances, as far as I can see.
Well, but the other side is if you're operating at a higher competition, you probably will be brought on that bit quicker, and there's a chance of I think there is a chance of slipping off the radar in terms of your own preparation, either because you might get away with it at junior level, which is trained that bit harder, and you'll improve as a player at a higher level.
But like the last thing, like we saw this year's Tip minor team, clubs from the strongest of the strong down to junior. I would hate to see any of those guys from junior clubs feeling I have to transfer to an intermediate or senior club to get ahead of a Tip. If we're going down that road, like what are we doing? Like I think I'd hate to see that starting to happen. Like,
well, this is the concern though, because there is no policy here. There is no sort of.
How can those clubs grow if they're best talent? Like, how can a junior club ever aspire to getting up to intermediate if their best player or players has to go to a bigger club? Like, so The big
Yeah,
only
and
get
then you
bigger in
have
the week
like
or so.
transfers within counties of,
Yeah.
we saw Knockavilla, Doneski, Kickham's and Cashel last year. Ones like that would certainly stick in the craw. Obviously, there's a situation, but you had, was it 4 or 5 players all heading at the one time from one club to another, and it just
club
it
I
just
think
doesn't feel right.
I'd say at that stage there were 2 clubs of equal, more or less equal standard. I would have looked at there was nothing. I would have said very little between Cashel and Kickham's in terms of standard. But then you're 4 or 5 from one club, good lads, then go to the other club. Then you're definitely creating a gap. Then
Yeah, to be fair to Knockavilla, they're performing well, irrespective of that. Just to talk about the managerial merry-go-round, and we still don't know who's going to be the manager of Laois, don't know who's going to be the manager of Kilkenny, don't know who's going to be manager of Dublin, Waterford. But interestingly, Anthony Cunningham has just stepped
as well now.
Offaly as well, yeah. Anthony Cunningham has just stepped down as manager of Roscommon. I wouldn't be shocked if the former Dublin selector ends up in the hot seat there in the coming weeks. Now, maybe they're gone pretty far down the recruitment process already and have interviews done and so on. But you could see a situation where he comes into the reckoning.
Yeah, Cunningham was with Pat Gilroy, wasn't he, for his 1 year, wasn't he?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, and he seemed to get a good tune out of them, so.
They had a great season under Gilroy, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's been approached. Maybe this is the first domino to fall in terms of he had to let Roscommon know that he wasn't staying on. And again, you'd think, God, he had another good year with Roscommon, got promoted, probably just lost their focus maybe in that Clare match in that All Ireland playoff. So you just wonder, I still think there was progress to be made in Roscommon, but maybe they're looking for somewhere fresh. And look, I always got the sense that while Cunningham was a dual code man, that hurling was his number one. And I'd say if he got an approach from, I'd be surprised if he's not managing somebody next year. Maybe if it's not Dublin, I like the Laois and Offaly jobs wouldn't be very, very far for him to travel. He's at Lone IT, I think, in working, so he'd be, even the Dublin job wouldn't be huge killer there either. I'd be surprised if he's not in some managerial role next year. Probably hurling.
And I'd say they were desperately disappointed to lose to Clare in that football All Ireland. Was it quarterfinal or no? I think it was a qualifier, like you were saying. We'll talk about the club championship in Tipperary now.
Yeah.
Huge amount of stuff going on this weekend, and as we know from chatting a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week even, there was 4 draws from the 8 games that were played at the senior championship. So in Group 1, we'll start off with Group 1. So Killerwan are top there. Nina, Éire Óg, Clonolty, they're both on a point each, and Moycarkey Burris, after a heavy loss to Killerwan, they're bottom of Group 1. So Clonolty against Killerwan this weekend, and Nina against Moycarkey Burris. We'll just start off with Clonolty against Killerwan. The West champions drew with Nina, and Killerwan obviously hammered Moycarkey. So going into this, certainly the momentum is with Killerwan. I'd say Clonolty would be a bit frustrated they didn't see it out against Nina.
Yeah. Look, I suppose if you were looking at evaluating Clonolty, if the match was a draw with Nina, but you were saying who was more deserving of the 2 points if they were on offer, you would have probably said, you would definitely say Clonolty. So look, if Declan Ryan and the management focus on the positive, is to say, okay, look, we did enough to win that game. We just didn't see it out. There would be some concerns definitely of their full back line. They were very, very open in that first half, and looking at Killerwan scoring 4 goals and Keane Darcy getting through, Killerwan will be licking their chops to think if we get good direct early ball into that full forward line, we can make hay, particularly in Simple Stadium, a big open field. I suppose we get a better feel for Killerwan after this game, because look, I was talking to James Hayden, who was doing the game. He said it just wasn't a contest. He said Moycarkey were just so far off the pace, it was scary. So look, I think Killerwan will be first to recognise, okay, maybe a great win, looks good on paper, but how good were the opposition on the day? So look, I think there'll be a better feel for Killerwan, but I think they'll definitely take the momentum from that. Like Keane Darcy, I think they need to hang their hat on one forward. They get Keane Darcy scoring big every day. You have chipping in from Niall O'Mara and Cian O'Kelly and Tom Hogan. They're going to be hard. They're hard stopping Jerome Khaled, but he was very, very good against Moycarkey as well. So no, I have a sneaky fancy for Killerwan in this one. I don't Clonolty ultra will come out. I think Clonolty will pick up from that as well. But I just worried that element of the full back line in the Nina game. Plus, they didn't really have a goal threat either, Clonolty against Nina. So, and that Killer One looked like they have a bit of a goal threat. Maybe could swing it their way.
Yeah, so Conor Hammersley scored 5 points from the inside line and the last day out. Who do you see picking him up? And Dylan Quirk, captain at centre forward. Who do you see him picking? Would maybe Craig Morgan take up that task and just try and follow him everywhere, or will he be expected to do the hurling from the back line?
I know. I say Killer One might say, okay, Craig and Dylan are more or less the same underage group, so like there'll probably be a nice bit of digging there. So I'd say Craig has gone in centre back. I'd say it looks like they're going to go with Niall O'Mara up in the forward, so Craig will be at centre back. Probably Jack Peters at full back on Conor Hammersley, so that'd be a good battle there. No, I just think the direct approach maybe of Killer One might pay dividends. Like Clonolty were looking to work their wall through the lines, maybe trying to pick up direct ball, maybe Conor Hammersley pulling out from the full forward and maybe leaving two inside. So that doesn't create an awful lot of goal scoring chances. So no, I'd probably be fanciering Killer One in this one.
Yeah, even though, you've mentioned Jerome Cahill and Keane Darcy and so on, they've other scorers who Keane O'Kelly's, fairly imposing forward who likes to go at his man. But it's games like this against Clonolty, who are a seasoned team, very competitive no matter who they're playing, that the likes of Keane Darcy, this is the game where he needs to be flying rather than, in a game where they're walking all over my Carkey Burrs.
Yeah, and like it's if you're a Killer One this week, you're saying we win this game, we're through to the quarterfinals. Like, so look, you want to be treating it as a knockout game. Get your business done early. Don't have to rely on having to go to play Nina in your last game to qualify. Get your business done early. Get your ticket for the quarterfinal booked. And I think that's how they'll be looking at it. Like Clonolty under a little bit more pressure now with only 1 point on the board. But they'll probably feel, look, if they can get a win here, on paper the Mike Harkey game looks the winnable game. But like I'd be expecting a response out of Mike Harkey this week against Nina. Like, they can't be that bad. Like, it's like they for a club that were so competitive the last few years, and what gives me hope that they suggest that they will be better is like they rebounded last weekend in football and beat Aherlow. Like, so that says to me, look, that the spirit within the group was good. They were able to use the football, and hopefully they'll to rebound, and I think they'll be better for it. And like I think it's a dangerous game for Nina, because people will be thinking, looking at the score from the Mike Harkey game the last day, thinking these boys could be the whipping boys of the group, and that's a dangerous thing to have. Like, because like I'd be expecting a bounce from Mike Harkey. I still think Nina might shade it, but I'd be surprised if Mike Harkey are as uncompetitive this time round.
Yeah, so there are pitfalls there for Nina. Johnny Kelly said after the match against Clonolty that the game lacked intensity for a while. He said it was a bit cagey. Obviously, they're already through, so maybe that's, they already have the backup of the preliminary quarterfinal if they don't get through the group as North champions. Josh Keller and Philip Hickey picked up injuries the last day. Barry Heffernan's out for the season. Weren't you saying that Dara Quinn obviously is carrying injury things? So there are a lot of issues here. Like, who's going to be right for this game? And also, there are injury issues there. There's a lot that could suggest this could be a pitfall game for Nina.
Could be. There's no doubt about it. Plus, like, if you're Nina with a preliminary quarterfinal in your back pocket, you're not risking any injuries. You're allowing anybody with an injury is to go away and rehab and be ready for then. And like, I suppose from their point of view, their junior team are out of the championship, and their junior Bs. So look, they have no problem pulling from their squad now at this stage to cover injuries, because like it's okay, while you want to be building a sort of a settled team, the last thing you want to do is maybe playing a guy that's only 70-80% and he breaks down again and you lose him maybe for the rest of the campaign. So I suppose Nina are in a position where maybe they can delve into their squad and make it deeper, which will only serve them better for the long run.
Yeah. Paul Tierney says, what players that are not with the county hurling team are standing out for inclusion, albeit it's early? So he's suggesting, or he's saying that Keane O'Kelly and Andrew Ormond for him.
There's potential in both. I think Keane O'Kelly is a ball winner. He could be our Gerard Hegarty in a few years' time. I think the one aspect of his play that I think he has developed is peripheral vision. I think he tries to do too much. He tends to try to take on his man, whereas if he sees people around him, he could be such a creative force. Like, if you're a guy that wins ball like he does, and you could be feeding off him, like what scoring a whole forward line can do. And like I've always been a big fan of Andrew Ormond. I just think he offers something different in the forward line. He's low centre of gravity. He's not physically the strongest, but he has pace. Like, he can score. Like, and I think that's something that we haven't had the last few years, as that sort of a Peter Casey, sort of Graham Mulcahy, whipper-sapper sort of a guy who could pop up with 3 or 4 points from play, like just sort of elusive corner forward. Like, we sort of haven't had one of those in a long time in Tipperary.
Yeah, he definitely is a player that I wouldn't be shocked to see him coming into the reckoning next year, or at least get a call in. But just back to Keane O'Kelly, you talk about him as a Grode Hegarty type possibility, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you see him as a player who's more of an inside forward or an outside forward? A lot of the time you see him on the inside, and it's the idea is to turn and go at his man.
Yeah, I think he's more of a half forward. Like, Liam Cahill would have had him a couple of years at underage level. Like, I think he had him in 18 and 19. Like, and he definitely saw the potential in him too. Like, so I'd have no doubt. I'd say Liam Cahill will. I'd say, like, Colin Bonner had a look at him but didn't feel he was ready yet. So I think another year. He does play a bit of rugby for Nina Ormond, so you can be sure his physical strength he'll only develop. I think I'd be surprised if he's not in an extended panel this year, because, like, he's 20, 21 years of age. You get him into a setup where you get into good habits, maybe winning ball. Like, we know he can take a score, but I just think he's going to be such a weapon in terms of ball winner and feeding guys off him, because we saw him at underage. He's a sort of an animal. I think it was at that Munster final where when he does have the ability to take on his man and break the tackle. Remember, he against Cork, he sort of burst through, and he has that lovely wrist where he flicked it over the advancing keeper. He sort of made it the finish to a ridiculous season. It was the 2019 Munster Under-20 final. He scored a brilliant goal that day.
Yeah, and like, if he is going to be that type of player, running on and be able to carry the ball and bring other people into play, that's probably going to be what Tipperary are doing next year. If you look at what Liam Cahill did with Waterford and Michael Beavens, etc., the last few years, that's what they're doing. They're running it through the lines. So there's going to be a fair departure for Tip next year. Actually, just while we're talking about Liam Cahill, Waterford still haven't filled the managerial position. You hear all sorts of names, and plenty of them Kilkenny names being mentioned, and a few obviously more locally. But it's not ideal for Waterford, is it? Because the club championship started at the weekend. Ozzie Gleeson was on fire, as he often is. Ballygunner still, pasting teams, 44 games unbeaten there. They'd want to get their business done fairly soon, because let's say it's an outside manager, you do want them there at the club matches and not just watching streams.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we don't hear Waterford being finished pretty soon. It's like the man, it was Stephen Frampton or Fergal Hartley, one or the other, over the selection committee, I think. Like, they probably know who they were going chatting to. Rumours today that Darren Gleeson's been spoken to, so whether there's anything in that,
I heard that a few weeks ago. I heard Eddie Brennan mentioned, Michael Fennelly mentioned, Derek McGrath, of course.
Yeah, sure. Like, they don't seem to be in any rush whatsoever. So look, it's all about getting the right candidate and somebody that's I suppose going to get the best. I suppose they're probably another year or two with this Waterford team at their peak of all those very good under-21s from 6 years ago. So they're probably another year or two. So I'd be surprised. I would think maybe Brennan. I think Brennan Fennelly. I would say Eric McGrath has gone quiet. I'd say maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they go for a Kilkenny type of a manager this time.
Yeah, well, and Kilkenny is very proximate too, so they might go down that route. But there is talk of maybe some players going abroad. I mean, that's something we heard about Tipperary. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but that could happen. There's a fair injury profile to some of those key players with Waterford.
Yeah,
Jamie Barnes, brilliant player, but he's had an awful lot of injuries. Tyke de Burke has had a couple of cruciates. Conor Prunty's had a couple of injuries, but these are obviously excellent players. Gleeson and Stephen Bennett, they're still in prime years. So
Ballygunner have another long campaign. Like, how fresh will it be next? I can end it. Was it Desi Hutchinson was only Ballygunner player that made the team effectively last year? Like, so.
Yeah, actually the likes of Peter Hogan and Keane Kenny probably lost out because of, sorry, not Keane Kenny, Ian Kenny kind of lost out a little bit. We'll go on to the I suppose we're finished up talking about Nina Airog against Moycarkey Burris. We'll go into the second group. So Thurles Sarsfields are top there after Pace and Bursley. Drummond Inch, they beat Temple-Derry with plenty to spare. And Temple-Derry and Bursley are the two bottom teams at the moment. But we'll start off with Drummond Inch against Thurles. Huge blow to Sars that Rona Maher's got a broken shin or leg, and he'll be out for some time. Obviously, we know Paddy Maher's already retired, so that's your 3 and your 6 from last year gone. How are they going to replace him? Because it's fair going to replace one with, I think it's James Armstrong, who is in at full back. How do you replace
centre back?
centre back? How do you replace the second one?
Yeah, sure, that's it. You're probably looking at maybe a Jack Derby type of a player. Look, there'll be anybody that Thurles Arsenals have played senior hurling will be a good hurler, but like when there's good and then there's inter-county good as what Paddy and Ronan were, and you can only imagine like for the last 4 or 5 years, like any marquee forward on the other team, Ronan Maher generally picked them up, like, and our Paddy picked them up, so they don't have that now anymore. And Mike of course, Michael Cahill is. I don't think Michael Cahill is hurling this year. So look, you're thinking all those years when Thurles played drum and Callan got either Michael Cahill or got Ronan Maher. Callan must be thinking, great. I'm delighted I'm not seeing these two boys anymore. So unless Cahill got to be funny now if they pull Cahill out from under the sentence. Hi Shamey, I'm back. Like, so I think there's a great opportunity for Drum this weekend. Like they have the win over Templederry. They'll feel maybe Thurles are a little vulnerable. Drum have been going pretty well this year, apart from I suppose that mid-final. So probably when they were probably under a bit of pressure, like there was all the expectation was on them and they didn't finish it out. But I think that the fact that last year, I think Thurles scored 5 goals in the first half against them last year, I think, or there was a 3 in the first 10 minutes. They just blew them away. I think Drum will be motivated to make sure we're not going to be embarrassed like we were last year. We're going to we're just going to set ourselves up for the Bursley match. If we win, great. If we don't, we want to produce a performance. Say, okay, we're going to be ready for the Bursley match in a fortnight's time after that. So. I still fancy Thurles. I think the impact of Ronan and Pádraig won't be felt now, but I think it'll be felt in the knockout stages. I think they might have where you can express yourself more in the group stage. I think they might have enough at this stage, but I still think maybe the greater spread of forwards in the Thurles side might be enough to carry them through.
Yeah, they were under 20 teammates at midfield during the season, Dara Stakelum and John Campion. That could be a good battle if they're up against each other.
Oh yeah, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is maybe a game Liam Cahill is at, but like you have a lot of potential prospective tip guys, new guys. You say Dara Stakelum, you have Connor Stakelum and Thurles side, you have Johnny Campion. I think Podge Campion of Drum and Inch is one that he would have heard, I think, wing back under Liam Cahill maybe. Like, I think he's definitely one that he'd be on the radar again of breaking into that setup. So I wouldn't be. This has the potential probably to be a lot of potential inter-county guys on view this weekend. Paddy Creedon, another one as well.
Yeah, I was looking at like Patrick Swell got hammered without Keane Lynch the other day. I'm sure there's more to it than that. But they had a great start and they got fairly well hammered in the Limerick Championship. Who are the leaders without the Mahers, the two Maher brothers playing here for Thurles?
Yeah, I think that's would be the one thing that the Thurles Arsenal's manager will be looking for. I think Connor Stakelum in the middle of the field had definitely won. Like, he's 24, 25 years of age, really heading into the peak. And like you were like, I think the likes of Dennis Maher and Pa Burke will definitely feel okay. Like maybe the backs have maybe got us out of holes for many years. I think this is the year where maybe the forwards have to do a lot of the legwork and take the pressure off maybe an inexperienced defence. Like, so maybe that they get enough scores. It'd be interesting to see what they do, because definitely in recent years you were looking at the Sarsfield team and looking the Ronan, Pádraig, Michael Cahill. You had 3 inter-county quality guys making up their defence. None of them are there now. While they will have good defenders, like that's a massive hole to repair in any team.
And where would you, like, if you were Drum, where are you looking at playing Callan to try and get him into the game as much as possible against the defence that doesn't have those 3 lads?
I think you put him in. I know they've been floating him between full and wing forward. I think now when you look at that Thurles team, you take go for the juggler, put him inside where he's going to do his damage. Maybe 2 men inside full forward line with somebody working off him. But I know in the last few years his best work tended to be out around the half forward line, because I suppose unless the ball is going in, he was stifled. He had nothing to do. So I suppose it'll all depend on where to maybe see Thurles as being most vulnerable. I suppose you look at Thurles having James Armstrong at centre back, played very well at under 20 level for Tip this year, but maybe Drum might think, okay, Callanan maybe might have the experience on this guy. So it'll be a big game for the likes of Armstrong, a big campaign coming up. As if he marshals that under that Thurles defence for the rest of the year, he could probably one of the more underheralded, maybe underage players this year than under 20 team, but he held that centre back role very well. And I'm always a fan of that, of a centre back being sort of one of the unheralded players on the team rather than being the star, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
the
like
guy that just does,
maybe.
Yeah, just does his job, and I would always remember in 2010 that great under 20 team. Like you always think Paddy Maher must have been 3 or 6-0 to John Coughlin. Of course, John Coughlin was suspended for the final. Why did I know Ken Hogan be a fan of your good holding centre back, and maybe doesn't do the flash stuff, but you can always rely on him. I'm definitely more of a fan of those type of centre backs. Brian Hogan for Kenny as well. You always think there was flashier guys that could have played 6. Why did Cody always pick him as his number 6? He was just so solid and did his job.
Obviously a massive must-win clash between Borrisley and Templederry, local derby. Last year when they met in club championship action, Borrisley won fairly handy. Yeah. But both teams are coming in off the back of bad losses here, so there could be an element of neither knowing fully where they're at.
Yeah, I think definitely more pressure on Borrisley now because they haven't played well in their first two in the game against Tumivara and again against Thurles Arseals. Brendan is very unlikely to play on Sunday with a hamstring injury. So what happens here?
Probably Jerry Kelly to centre back.
Looks like it, and I think the second half it seemed to work pretty well for them. I know that they went with Dan for that period up to half time, and in the second half,
I remember watching
Jerry back centre back.
I remember watching him play there for the Burris under 21s a few years ago. Obviously, that's under 21, but he looked very comfortable there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know, well, one thing, he'd be a very, very good distributor of the ball from centre back up into the forwards. Look, he'd know the type of. I always feel I think any forward would love a spell at half back because they'd appreciate maybe the type of the difficulties of getting the quality of ball in. But I think the fact that they had a better second half with him there, maybe they'll go with that and maybe keep Dan maybe in the middle of the field. And you would assume maybe Kieran Maher will probably come into the forward line now. So they still have enough scoring power overall to beat Templederry, but I think Templederry, I think that game last year will be in the forefront of their minds. They'll feel that maybe they let themselves down that night. That 25-point beating was bad. Never got to the pitch of the game. They want to show, look, we're not 25 points an inferior team. And like I still say against Drum and Inch, what was it, 230 to 219? They didn't hurl overly that bad. I think the scoreline got away from them in the last 5 or 6 minutes. But they'll feel, look, if they can find a little bit more improvement and maybe have Borrisley under pressure going into the last 15, 20 minutes, they can feel there's an upset here.
Yeah, well, like if I'm to put on the Borrisley hat, which is probably always on anyway, like this could be the right game at the right time. You know, there's a need for a win here, and maybe a win with a bit of confidence towards the end of it. If Borris can perform well and maybe feel like, okay, we've got a bit of a settled team now all of a sudden, you know, who knows? Maybe sometimes you stumble upon a change that reinvigorates the team. Maybe putting Jerry Kelly at centre back could work out brilliantly. And then when Brendan comes back, assuming Burris are still going, who knows? Maybe you throw him in full forward, and all of a sudden your team is reinvigorated. You're doing something slightly different.
You try something different. You try something different. Like, would you go left field and put Ray McCormack up the field or midfield, whereas he can go on one of these tearaway solo runs, and just pull the team on his back? It'd be interesting to see whether I'd be surprised if Shane O'Neill doesn't strike me as a manager who'd panic and maybe rip up the game plan at this stage, and maybe try something different. But even trying Jerry Kelly at centre back would be seen as something different, because you would automatically assume defaulted maybe Dan McCormack as your 6 if Brendan wasn't there.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing: some of the locals are getting a small bit restless, so there's definitely pressure on the management to try and get a result here. But I'm sure Templederry will feel the same way, that they need to make something happen here. So we'll move on to the next group then. So top of the Group 3 is Upperchurch, Drumban, Toomevara and Toomevara and Holy Cross are next. And not Toomevara and Holy Cross. Toomevara and Mullinahone are next on a point each, and then Holy Cross at the bottom. So Mullinahone and Upperchurch this weekend. Like, obviously there was that situation with Mullinahone and the penalty that looked like it went wide, and it was obviously given. Owen Kelly came on and made a bit of an impact, including that penalty. Do you think he'll start here? Is there talk of him being ready?
I didn't hear. I suppose the fact that they only brought him on very late suggests that it looked like it was a strapping on his calf, I think, when he came on, that he's carrying some bit of an ailment. So would the 2 weeks make a whole lot of difference? Probably not. They'll probably have to be minding him as well. But then they're in a situation where they have to finish top 2 in the group to get to the knockout stages. They have nothing to fall back on. I'd say they'll probably have to risk it, because they were very much second best for the 50-55 minutes he wasn't on the field. So they might feel, look, if we got Owen even in the full forward line and got the guys pulling around him, if he has the same impact against the Upperchurch defence he did on Toom in terms of spooking him, and maybe it opens up avenues for others, it might be worth the risk, because I think they'll have to be at their best to beat the Upperchurch team. I think Upperchurch will look at this and thinking, look, if we get a win here, we're in the quarterfinals for the second year in a row. We're making more progress. I think Upperchurch have done enough over the last few years to say they haven't peaked yet. There's more coming, and I think if they take out Mullinahone this weekend, I think you definitely say they'll be in the shake-up.
Yeah, and they beat Care. Upperchurch beat Care in the football at the weekend, and I think the Shanahans were apparently very good there. Luke Shanahan scored 1-5 against Holy Cross here, so or in the previous game. So that'd be an interesting game.
And he's more of a backman, underage. So I suppose any good hurler like him will play well in the forwards. Look, he could be the difference factor here, putting him up in the forwards, taking some of the pressure off the likes of Paddy Green, and getting a second score with or helping out the Paul Shanahan as well, and Jack Butler. So they're developing a nice squad. I think that I'd fancy them maybe to shade this one.
Yeah, and then Holy Cross against Toomevara. So after losing to Upperchurch, Holy Cross will want to bounce back here. But to be fair to Toom, as you said, they for large spells of the game against Upperchurch, against Mullinahone, they were the better team. But after the Owen Kelly goal, they did come back, so that showed that there's something there.
Yeah, but I think I'd say the annoying thing for Toom is they had control of that game and didn't see it out. They had an opportunity in the North Championship against Killadangan when they were a point up, just lost control of it. They're not seeing out games pretty well enough, and I suppose that's what when Toom were in their pump, they were so good at that. So I think that's one thing that'll annoy them, that they're getting in these winning positions and they're not seeing it out. Be interesting to see whether they maybe shake things up in their defence to maybe make it a bit more solid, particularly in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe don't leave themselves as open as they appear to be. Interesting for me will be to see whether Jack Delaney can build on it. He had another good 2 goals performance. I think he's one, but maybe he's one of those guys that if he has a good club championship campaign will get a call in. I just think he's can float in and out of matches, but there's no doubt about it when he plays well. When he's on his game, he's a good, very, very good finisher front of goal. So I'd be interested to see how his campaign continues. I suppose, can he have another good campaign for I suppose another good performance for Toom at the weekend against Holy Cross, and from their point of view, get the win and get the 3 points ahead of their last game against Upperchurch. More pressure on Holy Cross to pick here. I'm not sure whether Brian O'Mara is due home for this game or not. So if he is, it'd be a great fill up for them. If he's missing, I fancy Toom here.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee that a player coming from America will come back and be flying. You were saying, Billy Seymour probably take and this weekend, I suppose, Killadangan are against Aero Gannacarty. Will he be probably a little bit sharper than maybe the first day out? In this group, Brackens, Aero Gannacarty, Killadangan and Lockmore, they're all on a point each. There's 2 draws from 2. But Aero Gannacarty and Killadangan, how do you see that one going? Because Killadangan, they probably still have some players away. They're probably not motoring at their usual 100%.
No, I think they're getting stronger. I think look, the 2 weeks will bring Billy Seymour on. It'll bring Willie Connors on. Got the second half. You probably don't expect Willie to. I'd be surprised if Willie starts, but if if there's one player you wouldn't surprise if he does start, it's Willie Connors. Like he probably would have been meticulous in his rehab, and he'd probably be anxious to start. But you don't want to potentially give him too much time, and maybe he breaks down with a muscle injury or something. So the speculative talks that Decky McGrath might be home. Like he'd be another one. Probably wouldn't see him starting because like they do have enough cover in the halfback positions with Darren Moore and Jack Jim, what's his name? Jack Lucknan, but great option to have off the bench as well. Like if they feel he's ready to contribute. Dan O'Mara probably ready to go. Sean Hayes wins it with a hamstring, whether they might hold him off for another fortnight, maybe give him the full chance of getting right. So I think whatever about the player availability, I think Killadangan be thinking, I'd say they'd be first to admit that was as poor as I've seen Killadangan play against Lockmore the last day, and they still drew the match. It says enough about them to say that they still had enough about them to get the win, but they just looked. They didn't look as cohesive as I've seen them over the years. And I'd say the last 2 weeks in training, I'd say they've been working an awful lot of getting their sharpness up. Like Paul Flynn looked very sluggish in that game. He's usually when he's going well, Killadangan are fine, and Joe Gallagher was quiet. So I would be surprised if Killadangan training for the last 2 weeks and 2 weeks wasn't hot and heavy trying to get the intensity levels up and the speed up in their game.
Yeah, like if players are coming back from abroad, it can sometimes put noses out of joint of lads who were there training all along if they come straight back into the team. So that's something for management to contend with. The other game, like JK Brackens are coming in after a win over Arvale Rovers in the football at the weekend. So I'm sure confidence is high there. They're against Lockmore this weekend. Did you obviously Lockmore were also playing in football over the weekend, just to double check who they were playing.
Beat Ardfinnan by 4 points. So
beat Ardfinnan, the county champions, of course, double county champions. Is there any talk of injuries on either side from the football coming into this?
Potentially more on the Bracken side. I know they had to use a couple of their to lose a couple of their intermediate team and their intermediate football team and their senior football team last weekend. So I whether that be impacts on their hurling squad, maybe they're a little depleted. Maybe they were resting guys maybe with one eye on this game against Lockmore. Because look, I said there has been very, very little between these two teams against each other the last few years, but Lockmore have always had the Indian sign over. But maybe Brackens are looking, God, if we could get a win here, like against maybe a Lockmore team minus John McGrath, minus Willie Everson, minus I'm not sure whether Kieran Connolly is home.
Liam Tracy's travelling, isn't he?
This is a massive opportunity for the Brackens to get one over Lockmore, and if they do that, they have 1 foot in the knock. Well, I suppose they already have a knockout berth, but psychologically they'd love to get one over and Lockmore. Still though, I think I went for a draw in my prediction this weekend. There's just something about Lockmore. You just can't write them off, and you think the 1 year Brackens might think we have the armory to beat them, and they probably still won't be able to beat them. So I fancy a draw in this one. I think it's a game I'm hoping to get to this weekend. It was a nice bit of a rivalry between the two of them. A lot of Lockmore lads and would have gone to school in Templemore as well. So there'll be a bit of needle in this game too. I think it'll be very, very cagey. I don't think it'll be very high scoring. Like both teams play a pretty possession orientated brand of hurling. Like they don't panic in possession. They won't just drive it aimlessly up the field. They work it through the lines. So I think this could be cagey, low scoring affair, pretty tight, and would be surprised if it ends up in a draw.
Okay, we'll start talking about the Premier Intermediate. So in Group 1, Sean Tracy's are against St. Mary's and Burgess are against Newport. How would you see that going?
Yeah, I fancy Mary's in the first game. I think Tracy's been very competitive, but Mary's scoring 123 in the first game. I think that says to me, look, there's something about them. Seamus Kennedy, very, very good in the first match. Peter McGarry played well too. He's probably he's another year to come at under 20, but I think he's very, very exciting player for the future. Fancy Tracy's. And then the other one, pressures on Newport. But I think maybe the fact that they had a good, strong finish against St. Mary's, even in defeat, they might take a little momentum out of that. They have a good set of forwards. Burgess always sticky. I think this will be tight. I fancy Newport slightly could go either way. Could be one of those draw games here again as well. But just think with new pressure on Newport, they might just pull something out of the fire here.
Yeah. The Group 2 then, Killadangan B against Moyne Templetooey, and the other game is Roscrea against Silvermines.
Yeah, Jesus, Moyne Templetooey just seemed to be in a crippled way with injuries. The Paul Maher got injured against Silvermines. He came out go. I think he's picked up a facial injury. I think against Silvermines in the goals, and then Gerard O'Connor, who was injured, was the sub goal. He came in and then aggravated the hamstring injury coming out to a ball. So you just think that it just seems to be whatever could go wrong is going wrong for Moyne Templetooey. And even though Killadangan have lost, I suppose, half the youth 2021 players at senior level so far, still very, very competitive. You look at them, they scored 4-12 against Roscrea, playing that game with 14 men for 75% of it. Just shows you like they're a decent side. I ordinarily I'd say Moyne Templetooey, but I just think they're so bedeviled by injury. I think Killadangan will be looking at this game. I think if we win here, whatever about maybe getting to the knockout next stage, it probably would guarantee their survival in the second tier for another year, which they'd be thrilled with.
Yeah, so Thurles Sarsfield's B.
And I just I know Roscrea and Silvermines.
Oh yeah,
Roscrea. The sides actually met in the North semi-final about 5 weeks ago. Went extra time, so probably looking like it'll be another tight one again. I probably fancy Roscrea. I think they have a greater spread of scores, even though Silvermines are relying on Ford. It does look like they're building the game plan around him. And look, while it's working, why not put it all on his shoulders? He tends to thrive in that sort of responsibility. But maybe the greater spread of scores, maybe Roscrea might shade it again.
Yeah, so Thurles Sarsfield's B, they had a draw the last day out against Ballina, and they're up against Gartnahoe, who beat Killinall. So this weekend it's Sars against Gartnahoe, Glengool, and Ballina against Killinall.
Yeah, big pressure in Killinall this weekend because like Gartnahoe and Thurles are playing on Friday night. Like if Gartnahoe win that one, or sorry, if Thurles, I think if Gartnahoe win that one, and Killinall are beaten, the next day Killinall are out. Like so, just shows you that it gets a second round. That the pressure is on, depending on how the other match in the group goes that weekend. I think Gartnahoe off the high beat Killinall. I think they will carry momentum into Sarsfields, and I think they'll beat Sars. Even though Sarsfields got a good draw against Ballina, I think that draw will have annoyed Ballina. They would fancy their chances to win that game. So like they're coming in under pressure too. Like you're thinking, whoever loses between Ballina and Killinall probably won't make the knockout stages. Like so, Ballina Killinall has smacks of a draw here too. Maybe Killinall with the pressure on, maybe Killinall beat them last year, so maybe Killinall, probably the slightly better pedigree, might come to shove here, might sneak it, but maybe Gartnahoe probably to win the other game.
Yeah, and Richie Root coaching Gartnahoe Glengool against Sars, who we played with for so long.
I think Richie Power's name is on their management team. I wonder is it the Richie from Carrickshock? You might be able to find out for the next one. Maybe not.
I'll get on to him. I know he's definitely involved with Carrickshock, so I don't know if he'd have time for both teams, but I'll ask him. The Group 4 then, Cashel Kinccormacks are against Portrue and Carrick Swans are against Clonakilty, and you nearly always talk about how sticky Portrue are, so I have a feeling you're going to somehow opt for them here.
I think I went for a draw on this game because it's not that I was picking against them, but I just think I think they played last year and there was 3 red cards in it, and Cashel won by a couple of points. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's a small bit of carryover from this one. Like you'd have Robert Byrne up against Ger Brown. Like I'm delighted like this is getting Simple Stadium treatment, like because two are probably the fancy teams. They'll bring a lot of energy. Two up and coming sides. I've edged the draw on this one because I think, Cashel think they only scored 112 the last. They'll think there's improvement in them too. Portrue came late against the Swans, so I just think this group overall is very tight. So you have Clonakilty and the Swan in the other game. What wouldn't surprise me after this group is over is that every team will have won at least once, like because I think they're so fine margins. This one, Clonakilty wouldn't surprise me if they turned around to beat the Swan this weekend. I think, but then the Swan, I know they had a a sad death down there. One of their Pinky O'Neill died, so maybe they'll be on edge to hurl great and maybe win it for him as well. So looking at a draw, maybe Cashel and Port. I did very, very even teams, two maybe good up and coming teams, and Clonakilty, Cashel or Swan, very, very tight. I think I went for Clonakilty, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Swan won it either. Like both teams under a bit of pressure, but like all four of those teams have a preliminary quarter final already in the back pocket, so they can hurl with a bit of freedom too. Like so.
Yeah, Group 1 then of the intermediate, Ballingarry against Ballybacon Grange and Capel White against Moneygall. Moneygall had a good win the last day out by a couple of points against Ballingarry.
Yeah, there's rumours of a couple of suspensions out of Ballingarry after their Moneygall game. I'm not sure whether it was management or players, but I know they had 2 players sent off that day as well. So look, you think if they're maybe not fully focused on this one or distracted, it's a great opportunity for Ballybacon. But I still think Ballingarry, maybe they might have an edge to their play this weekend. They might share that one, and I fancy Moneygall to beat Capel White. I think Joe Fogarty is home. He'd be big, but from America, big addition to Moneygall. It was great for them to beat Ballingarry the first day without him. So having him back, like their best forward, he'll add something to that. I think they'll beat Capel White.
Yeah, Group 2 then, Knockavilla Donaghskee Kickham's against Skeheener Inky and Ballynahinch against Borrisakane. A couple of good games there.
Yeah, but Ballynahinch and Borrisakane played in the North quarter final about 6 weeks ago. Borrisakane won pretty well, but geez, their form has fallen since then. Lost to the Rovers, lost to Skeheener Inky, so they're coming in under pressure. It'll be interesting to see whether Ballynahinch will have closed the gap. But I think Borrisakane will win again. I think there 14 or 15 points between them that night. It's a big gap for Ballynahinch to close. Kickham's and Skeheen or Inky. Kickham's going very well. Like they seem to have moved on from. They've just found more players, and I always think they're a brilliant club for bringing through underage talent to Tip every year. And I always feel, and I might have said it last week, they're a club that you think probably should be hurling at a higher grade. So but the pressure, like Skeen coming in fresh, brilliant win over Borrisakane. They'll be motivated. Ballyporeen won in football last weekend. It's interesting to see, and I think, and like we've seen it with Lochmore, Brackens, Upper Churchill and Ban. Any of the clubs that are playing dual, it doesn't seem to hurt them in the slightest. And I think there's something in that. You can't beat a bit of continuity. You're playing week to week, and lads are enjoying it and more. And I just think the bit of the dual stuff, playing intermediate hurling and senior football, will bring Skeheener Inky on. Like, and I think Kickham's probably, in terms of tradition, probably will be fancy to win it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Skeheen turned them over either.
Yeah, Group 3 then, Arravale Rovers against Kilsheal and Kilcash, who I'm not sure if Mark Hughes, I think he went off early, didn't he, the last
the Rovers,
day?
Yeah, he didn't play football last weekend, and neither did Bill Maher, so maybe they're having... I know that they won the South, so they'll do a preliminary quarter final in their back pocket, but I'd say they'd like to get through the group with their own merit, and this is a sticky game against Arravale, but I still think Kilsheal probably will have enough, but they were aligned a bit on, and there's probably a little fall of Martin Gibbs now and Paul Maher now the next day, but I still think Kilsheal will probably shade in the other group. Drummond Inch and Shannon Rovers, like they've played a good few times the last few years. They drew, I think, 2-3 years ago. I think Shannon Rovers won the year before. So Drum had a good win over Arravale. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Rovers shade this one, because like that draw against Kilsheal would have given them an awful lot of confidence. They probably feel that they probably should have taken the 2 points as well. So the Rovers will feel to get a win here, they're in a great chance of qualifying from the group into the knockout stages, which from talking to a few people in the Rovers, they were worried about maybe being involved in relegation maybe at the start of the year, but now they're potentially looking at maybe getting to the quarterfinals and maybe further.
And then finally in Group 4, Borlahan Duala against Carrickdavins and Golan Kilfeacle against your own Loradora. Obviously, you're not going to say too much about that being involved, but those are the fixtures there.
Yeah, no, Borlahan probably would be fancied. I think Borlahan should be fancied to beat the Davins. Look, from a Laura point of view, looking forward to the challenge with Golan. A good season team at intermediate level the last couple of years, so we know we're going to get a serious test from them. So looking forward to the challenge. All the lads are fit and firing and ready to go.
So we'll finish up then just talking about the football over the weekend. And Loughmore and Clonmel, they obviously had wins. I'll just run through all the fixtures here, or the results, I should say. Ballyporeen, they beat Aero Gannacarty 111 to 9 points. Rockwell Rovers saw off Drom and Inch. Clonmel beat Killinall. Loughmore saw off Ardfinnan. Aherlow, they were beaten by Moycarkey Burris. Arvale lost to JK Brackens, and Kerr lost to Upperchurch Drumban. But obviously, the two main teams were firing anyway in Loughmore and Clonmel Commercials.
Yeah, and I suppose we throw Mile Rovers into the bracket too. So yeah, no real surprises. I suppose Brackens were pushed close by Arvale, but got there for a finish. So I think it's probably something in the football championship that maybe be tweaking. I'm not sure. Maybe a 16-team senior championship serves well. Maybe they'd be better off reducing it to 12 and really getting really good dog-eat-dog championship games too. Because like there is a bit of a gap between maybe you're looking at Commercials Loughmore, maybe down to the weaker teams, and I suppose seeing the likes of Aherlow struggle losing by 7 points to I suppose maybe a Moycarkey club that wouldn't take football very seriously. Maybe just it shows maybe the difficulties Aherlow have come, and maybe a traditional team for years. Maybe the numbers aren't there at the moment. Like so, you'll have to see. Maybe hopefully they'd bounce back over the next in the latter games. Like Rockwell Rovers, good win over Drum. Like so, that'll set them up for the rest of the campaign. So look, there were I suppose no real surprises. So it'd probably be the quarterfinals when we see the last 8, and I suppose maybe the one thing was. Maybe Kilsheelan had started well against Mile Rovers, but they fell away in the second half. Maybe if they're back at full strength, maybe the back end of the campaign with hopefully Bill Mara and Mark Keogh, we'll get a true reflection of how they'll perform. And I think Dara Brennan was missing last weekend as well, so they definitely weren't at full strength against Mile Rovers.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge amount of games going on this weekend, so we've done our best to cover as much ground as we can. That's it for the show this week. We'll be back again next week, and don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nenagh Guardian. Thanks very much, Shane.
Cheers.